Hello everyone, Alexander here with another concept video. Today I will talk about everyone's favorite spells, Shadow Enhanced spells. Now I am definitely not a PvPer of 4th Age, mainly due to experiences in the past, but I am aware of most that goes on, so don't grab pitchforks just yet. Everyone knows they're broken in PvP. There's always been a huge complaint about these spells to nerf them or ban them entirely. This is a concept that may just fix the mechanic entirely. With the April 2020 spring update, Kingsisle has shown that it is possible to apply flags and meters to spells. Once the requirements of will cast are met, they're able to be cast. For now they're simple, such as waiting X amount of turns to cast them. What if we took this same concept and put it on Shadow Enhanced spells? This mechanic is very much similar to the situation command in Kingdom Hearts 3, which is one of my biggest inspirations for this concept. In that game, as you dish damage, a meter is filled above your command menu. Depending on what you do, you will trigger a situation command. You will then form change into a stronger form that adds more combos and moves to your character along with a powerful finisher. If you cast certain spells, it also triggers another additional situation command to your menu. Such as here, I kept casting the Thundaga spell, and I got the Thundaza command to trigger. This concept for the Shadow Enhanced spells is loosely based on that. But like many JRPGs, such as Final Fantasy, there's the limit break, and so on. This advanced concept will be exclusive to only PvP, to keep the complications out of PvE, since over there, we still have to worry about cheating bosses. This concept is also deprived of the original mechanic that shadow spells are revolved around, backlash. Backlash is percent current health damage to your wizard that you take at the end of a shadow spell's cycle. This is not resistible, and you can't protect yourself from it from shields or auras such as Brace or Fortify. Every pure shadow spell will always place backlash on the player. The player must then work around that spell to lower the backlash so you take less damage at the end of its cycle. These are powerful advanced spells that force the player to change their playstyle during these rounds to maximize their use and minimize the backlash damage. So why can't we transfer that mechanic onto Shadow Enhanced spells? They are Shadow after all. So I drew up a mock-up. Right here in my hand, I pulled the ever so loved Abominable Weaver spell. As you can see, I'm waiting on a shadow pip, and there's a box with 65% shadow and another box showing a range. The box right there is your backlash value. All Shadow Enhanced spells will always start at their maximum value from the range. Once you discard that spell, you will have to start that backlash value all over. So let's say I discard this Weaver and it had a value of 50%, and I pull another Weaver. That new Weaver pulled will always start at the maximum value, which in this case is 65%. You basically have to keep these spells in your hand and play around it if you want to cast it and take the least amount of backlash possible. To lower the backlash, the player must cast spells that the specific Shadow Enhanced spell likes. Every Shadow Enhanced spell has its own unique range, along with different likes and dislikes. For example, Abominable Weaver likes ice spells. Ward spells, such as traps and shields, loves shield manipulation, but it hates fire and storm spells along with blades. We're going to call these fulfillments. There will be 3 types of fulfillments: a negative, regular, and super fulfillment. Negative fulfillments will increase your backlash by 15. Regular fulfillments will decrease the backlash by 10, but super fulfillments will decrease the backlash by 15. You can distinguish these fulfillments as the negatives being the dislikes, the regulars being what the spell likes, and the super fulfillments are what the spells love. So let's say, for example, I cast an Ice Blade. It's an ice spell, but it's a blade. So in this case, this is a regular fulfillment and a negative fulfillment. After doing the math, your backlash will go up by 5 for that spell. Now let's say I cast a Tower Shield. This is both an ice spell and a ward spell. This will lower your backlash by 20 because it is both a ward spell and an ice spell, both of which are regular fulfillments. Now let's say I finally get that Shadow Pip. That gray window above the spell now changes to purple, and the spell is ready to be cast. But that value above the spell is your backlash. That will tell you how much damage your wizard will take. Like I said earlier, this damage cannot be resisted or shielded against anything. Now let's say I can get the spell all the way down to the absolute minimum, which indicates in the window below being 5%. This causes the shadow spell to be fulfilled. Once you fulfill a shadow enhanced spell, you can now cast any other spell freely, even fire spells or blades, without any risk of the spell's backlash increasing. You are rewarded for playing your cards right, and the spell has been satisfied. You will, however, still take backlash damage, but in this case I will only take 520 damage, again assuming my health 10,414. Now this doesn't mean that you have to fulfill a spell all the way to cast it. You can still cast the spell early, but you will take more backlash. You will be able to dish more damage out to your opponent with these powerful spells, but you are putting yourself at risk because of all the backlash damage you are taking. This is where your playstyle could work around these spells when you draw the spells into your hand. This will punish players that constantly rely on shadow enhanced spells to win. There are many types of combos that could be possible with shadow enhanced spells depending on what the devs program these spells to like or love. Players can change their playstyle in many ways to combo spells into casting their shadow enhanced spell, or can instead just focus on regular damage spells like Colossus, Woolly Mammoth, Lord of Winter, etc. And could top everything off with these spells being a finisher. If players really want to utilize these shadow enhanced spells as their main source of damage, they must work around the likes and dislikes of every spell, so that way they prevent taking too much backlash damage. This mechanic, however, can give your opponent an advantage, but that means for you as well. You can predict an incoming shadow enhanced spell should you know the likes and dislikes of your opponent's shadow enhanced spells and know when they're willing to cast it. This is the part that will separate good players to great players. Memory and outsmarting your opponent will turn every PvP match into a chess match rather than what feels like a simple checkers match. Every move matters, whether you or your opponent relies on shadow enhanced spells. If you see that your opponent is casting certain spells that their shadow enhanced spells like, then you know what's coming. You can counter this by starting to get defensive. You could force your opponent to cast spells that their shadow enhanced spells dislike, thus increasing their backlash depending on how you play. Mix match combos and spells to decrease your backlash and increase your opponent's. Diego can also offer 2 new spells to surprise your opponent, but at a cost. You can enchant a shadow enhanced spell to remove all backlash, but increases the pip cost by 4. So it makes spells like Weaver turn into a 9 pip spell. But that also means you can't enchant it anymore. Or you can remove the shadow pip cost entirely, but you will be forced to take 40 backlash no matter what you do. This new mechanic will stay in PvP, like I said, so that casual players can still use these spells freely in PvE, but this mechanic will definitely show how much players can manipulate their opponent into their favor, creating unique combos and much more. There will be a ton of fulfillments for everyone to discover, whether it's negative fulfillments, regular, or super fulfillments. And it's up to the player to memorize all of them. Should the player not choose to memorize or take advantage of these powerful spells, they can simply not use them. And let's be honest, that's probably what everyone wants. I will definitely answer comments below or responses on Twitter because this is a pretty big concept. It's a bit of a stretch. Maybe Kingsisle will like it, maybe they'll just ignore it, but this idea is out there. So, thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon.